Hellblade, Senua's Sacrifice. A game about love, loss, pain, psychosis, and myth. Is something I've had the privilege to play recently, and today, I'd like to talk about it. Welcome back everyone to another Embrace Destiny video. I'm Kaz PhD. Normally, this channel is all about exploring the lore and story behind the Destiny franchise, but today, we're doing something different. Exploring stories, their power, their depth, their meaning is very important to me and fits well within the nature of this channel. So today, we are talking about Hellblade. This video will be divided into several parts. First, a high-level review, followed by discussing the structure of the game. Next, we'll be discussing the base story and player experience. Finally, we'll talk about the deeper meaning and how this game helped me grow as a person. As always, timestamps are below if you'd like to jump ahead. Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice is a 2017 game from Ninja Theory and follows the story of Senua, a warrior from the Pict clan. In this story, Senua travels to Helheim, fighting monsters and demons along the way in order to find and rescue the soul of her lost lover Dillion. It is a third-person action-adventure that uses incredible sound design, atmosphere, setting, story, graphics, and puzzles to explore both the main story, Viking culture and Norse myth, but also the impact and effects of psychosis. Whispers, constant and contradictory, memories unlocked in time, metaphors related to Norse mythology, unreliable narrators, and blurring the line between internal and external reality, Hellblade is a very impressive, dramatic, intense experience. I highly recommend the game to anyone who enjoys Dark Souls fighting mechanics, Norse myth, stories well told, and anyone who wants or needs to better understand the unfortunately too common symptoms of psychosis. Because of the nature of the main story, as well as the story beneath, this game is rated M for mature, and I warn you now that this video, and especially the game itself, can be uncomfortable, challenging, and intense for some audiences. Still, with all that being said, I highly recommend it as both a game and an experience, and it has truly left an impact on me, which we'll explore today. Hellblade layers every aspect of its design in order to immerse you and complement both gameplay and story. While perhaps not the most original opening, paddling down a river, the slow build-up presents the player with many questions. Who is this character? Where are we going? What's beyond the fog? Whose voices are those? As the fog rolls back and we realize those voices are internal or illusionary, Senua kicks off the log and declares there's no going back. And where are we? In the middle of a forest, we wander the path in front of us. No heads-up display, no quest marker, nothing but us and the environment. Voices constantly whisper, some laugh, some yell, some cry, some joke. It's a cacophony, a distracting chorus, not in harmony. Yet, there are clues there. Driven forward by mystery and the more helpful of voices, the world of Hellblade opens up. We learn about Senua, the titular character, from these voices, from her own monologue, and from Druth, a sometimes companion. Senua lost her lover Dillion, and she's going to get him back, even if she has to go deep into Helheim, Norse hell, to rescue him. The game never ceased to impress me with its atmosphere, mechanics, and level design. In a way, it's all quite simple, but layered as it is, and applied well, the effect is immersive and builds in intensity. For reference, I've never played Dark Souls. I've never played a game with that kind of fighting. The first fights in Hellblade are slow, and good thing. I've been playing shooters for so long I didn't even know what buttons to press. Finally, I got it. I learned to swing, light, then heavy attacks. I learned to dodge, kick, even parry. Each fight taught me something, even the first one I lost. The game uses a cumulative death mechanic that is really interesting and builds on the environment of anxiety, stress, and tension. Each time you die, a rotting effect works its way up your arm. Should it reach your head, the story ends. This gives every fight an added meaning. Each one could be my last, or at least Each failure brings me closer to my end. Would I be able to finish the game? What if I died too many times and had to start over? When the fight was over, I could take stock and see how much of my story that experience cost me, and move on. Much of the game involves simple exploration and clever puzzle design. One of the first such puzzles involves the use of runes. Doors and passages remain locked until the player finds some runes in the wild. These could be simple, like the shape of some trees, or they could require a change in perspective, like seeing the runes in shadow or blood on the floor. The next puzzle involved the use of gates, simple stone or wooden archways, but through them, a different perspective. Perhaps an obstacle was removed through the gate, or stairs were present where none had been before. Stepping through the archway acknowledged acceptance of the reality through the gate, and by switching perspectives back and forth, the player can advance. Finally, the last puzzle type was what I call glass bridges. Similar to the first two puzzles, this one involved a shifting perspective, finding shimmering mirage-like structures in the wild, but by moving to the right place, the mirages lined up, creating a bridge or stairs where there hadn't been, and everything clicked into place. Simple design, but all required exploration, experimentation, patience, and I was intrigued to hear that even the voices heard in-game would sometimes offer clues. One voice in particular stands out, that of Senua's friend and guide Druth. Along the way, Senua and the player can uncover lore runes, unlockable dialogue spoken by Druth, which recounts Norse mythology and Viking culture, and its connection to Senua's story. In short, just like the puzzles, the myth and the fighting provide context and depth behind the world of Hellblade, driving the player forward and providing them with wisdom, warning, and building the tension and anticipation of the main story. From this point forward, there will be spoilers. If you made it this far and wish to experience the game for yourself, I wish you well, and do return to let me know your thoughts. For everyone else, let's keep going. The main story of Senua's sacrifice is following our titular character deeper into Helheim, Norse Hell, in order to rescue her lost lover's soul. Believing the darkness had taken him from her, Senua's journey is layered with themes of loss, love, regret, and revenge. What begins simply, which again helps the player immediately connect, becomes layered over time with more depth. Take the Norse myth. Primarily, it functions as setting, placing the player in a world full of swords and sorcery. Druth, Senua's friend, constantly adds to this. Loosely based on Saint Findan, an Irishman who was captured by Norse raiders, who later escaped and became a Benedictine hermit, Druth is Senua's guide along her journey, and our guide through Norse myth. His stories, besides being interesting tales of gods, provide context and motivation, and provide direction for us. Druth tells us that in order to enter Helheim, in order to confront Hela, the goddess of death, we have to face off against Surt, a fire giant, and Valraven, the god of illusions. Similar to the puzzles mentioned in the last section, these elements are no accident, and are entirely used to drive home the point of the story. As the player journeys towards Surt, they become lost and trapped in fire. Villages, passageways, homes. Senua sees visions of fire, some here, and some, it becomes clear, are flashbacks to her former life. Surt himself is a tower of muscle and flame, and the fight is challenging, yet straightforward, with most players likely accustomed to this type of boss battle. Valraven is a different story. The god of illusions, the path toward him is marked with many puzzles and twisting paths. The fight is elusive, as the god eludes us, changes form, and is quicker than we have faced before. Both gods serve the narrative very well. Surt stands in as a standard video game boss, but the visions of fire are particularly unsettling, and as we learn of the flashbacks, it becomes clear that fire was a key destructive element in Senua's life. At first, it seems entirely connected with the fate of her lover Dillion, but we learn more later. Valraven is a signpost, a warning, that things are not what they appear. While numerous clues existed before, the the God of Illusion makes it very clear to the player that something is off. Something is not so straightforward in this world, or at least that someone may be trying to trick us. I cannot proceed further without paying tribute to the cultural experts and expertise demonstrated in this game. I myself am no expert, but there are several extras included with the game detailing its design, if you are interested. Needless to say, there was a lot of work involved in replicating and representing the Norse world and culture respectively, and every object, statue, and structure firmly and confidently places you within the world. After confronting Surt and Valraven, Senua's story deepens. On the surface, she learns of a magic sword made by Odin, one which can kill gods. However, it has been broken, scattered like debris on the shore, and Senua must undergo trials of the mind, body, and soul to reunite the blade. More puzzles, yes, and well done indeed. My favorite, and probably the scariest, was the blindness trial, where the player is forced to navigate by vibration of the controller or the sound of a running river, avoiding unknowable monsters scuttling in the dark. It was tense, but the voice of Dillion, heard only briefly before, intensified, guided, and motivated me forward. These trials also serve to present more backstory. We learn that Senua has long been tormented by these voices, that her father thought it a curse. He abused her, tortured her, and in turn, she tortured herself. Senua later met Dillion, who saw her as a great warrior, troubled but not cursed. Their love blossomed, until plague took Dillion's father. Cursing herself, Senua took to exile to try to remove the darkness, the curse. However, when she returned, she found Dillion and all his village slain by Northmen. Finally, after passing all the trials, after pushing forward, even though every voice urges you to stop, turn back, we face off against Hela. On the surface, the game is just that, a game, an experience moving from point A to B, fighting monsters in between. Even the story of a Celtic warrior fighting gods to save her lover's soul, while excellent, is only scratching the surface of Hellblade. I was recommended to play this by a few of my friends, one who enjoys stories well told, and a few others who really appreciated what the game was trying to do, what it represents. My first night of playing, a few friends came into my stream and kept pointing out elements that really resonated with them, with their experience. I literally stopped playing, invited them into my party, and spoke more fully about their experience. A link to that video is in this video's description, if you're interested. What I did not know, what I did not realize, was how common psychosis could be. For reference, psychosis is when people lose some contact with reality. They might see or hear things that others don't, or believe things that are not actually true. Before playing Hellblade, I had assumed that such symptoms were rare, only for the most troubled of people actively seeking care at medical facilities. This is how psychosis is generally portrayed, and I had no contact, that I knew of, no frame of reference. But no, one friend, someone I speak with often, told me that he constantly hears voices, my voice, his own, those of other people, constantly whispering to him, telling him what to do, what to think, how to feel. My other friend, she only hears the one voice, but it is like a constant bully, or con man as she calls it, constantly belittling her. Both of them understand that these voices are not real, and that they are mental manifestations, not auditory hallucinations. Both my friends have dealt with these voices for a very long time, and to them, they are quite normal and common. It takes constant patience and perseverance to not only live with these voices, but function, and function well. Not only a distraction, they are a representation of doubt, fear, pain. And before Hellblade, it would have been difficult for me to really encompass what that feels like. Hellblade's chorus of voices and trials of the senses were developed by researchers for the express purpose of representing psychosis in the video gaming medium. Teachers and researchers have praised the work, even using examples of it alongside the incredible motion capping and acting to explore, demonstrate, and work through issues of trauma and dealing with these symptoms. It is an incredible accomplishment, and even if the game were not commercially successful or interesting, this would still justify the effort involved. Senua's journey takes her into the very depths of the underworld, but it also takes us through the depths of hell that were her life and her tortured experience. Senua's father believed her mother was cursed and had her burned alive to cleanse this darkness. In turn, he made Senua believe she was cursed. He tormented her, abused her, made her feel worthless and dangerous, and in turn she cut herself, burned herself, doubted herself, even went into self-imposed exile to try to rid herself of the darkness. If you find all of the lore stones and unlock the extra cutscene, you learn that her father led the Northmen to her village, and that it was his fault that Dillion was blood-eagled and the entire village burned. Senua's final confrontation with Hela presents many key questions, but the main one remains: did the events of Hellblade occur, or were they only in Senua's mind? Initial reactions to this question likely provoke feelings on reality, with some feeling that a story of the mind would somehow diminish the meaning of it all, that if Senua did not truly go to hell and fight gods, then the story doesn't matter. It's quite fitting that the final boss fight song is called Just Like Sleep, because in a lot of stories, the "it was all a dream" trope is often used as a short form for "it doesn't matter, everything is reset." But it does matter. That's the point. Whether Senua fought the gods or not, the journey was real. Whether the demons were manifested by gods or by people, Senua followed a path into exile, chasing love, hating herself and the world around her. And in the end, she grew. She conquered. The surface conclusion follows the typical 5 stages of grief, from the denial mentioned above, the wish to believe it was all real and that Senua could rescue Dillion, through anger, calling Hela a liar and fighting to get Dillion back, bargaining and depression, trying to convince Hela to give Dillion back, even offering herself, and finally, to acceptance, through a touching moment where Senua learns to let Dillion go and move on. It's an intense showdown, one which had been building for hours over the main campaign, and is brought together by one of the most cathartic and earned boss battles I have ever seen. With rage and a mission, Senua and the player charge into the final confrontation. The music swells, the enemies surround her. But contrary to the rest of the game, where each enemy was a threat on its own, to be worked strategically and slowly, the enemies here were almost nothing. Senua and the player have grown together. These enemies are nothing compared with Hela, compared with the torment Senua has placed upon herself, and mowing down these distractions, these lessons we have already learned and moved on from, feels so rewarding, so earned, so climactic. In the end, Senua still hears the voices. She has accepted that Dillion is gone, but she does not have to be. The journey, mythological or not, internal and external, has taught her valuable lessons on perception, self-worth, and how to deal with her demons. And it has taught me as well. I played this game 4 years after it came out, and I honestly think now was the perfect time. The game looks and runs beautifully, but more importantly, I am at a place in my life where I can learn the most, appreciate, and share the lessons this game has to offer. Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice is an enriching, traumatic, cathartic story, which perfectly blends video game mechanics and communication with storytelling, Norse mythology, self-reflection, and the real-life impacts of psychosis in a way that marks it as a key touchstone, not only in gaming, but in life. Everyone has their battles to fight, everyone has different experiences, strengths, and weaknesses. Hellblade taught me that psychosis was more common than I realized, but rather than feeding me darkness, the game gave me hope. that learning these lessons will help shift my perspective to be an even stronger ally and a better and more understanding friend. If you have a few hours, grab some good headphones and play Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice, or at least look into the research of it a little. It may be a tough journey, but you will be glad that you did. Thank you all very much for watching and listening. If you have thoughts and comments on the game or your experience, please leave them below. As always, I wish that you be safe, be kind, and I'll see you all next time. Bye now.
Please don't go, I want you to stay. I'm begging you, please don't leave here.